right, thank you. All right, council, I'd like to call this special council meeting of June 27th, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda. Councillor Cherry, Councillor Stapenhurst, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Announcements from the mayor. I have one special announcement this morning. I just want to let council and the community know our beloved Miss Floyd has been with the city 15 years as of June 29th. And I want to say thank you for your service to the community. So I understand you started out in as a clerk in development services and then moved on to an EA and admin. And then the manager of corporate services and now director of corporate services. And so thank you for that. Did I miss anything in between?
Yeah. Yes, you did. You missed when our former CAO, I was the corporate services clerk in between there.
Okay. I apologize for that. I'm going by.
No, I was not happy.
You're not happy?
Wasn't.
Wasn't, yes.
Yeah. You are now.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you again for your service.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. I think we want to acknowledge when you've been here for such a long time and longer than I am sometimes. So anyway, appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to unfinished business. We have Mr. Black in the room. Mr. Black, do you want to speak to the motion before I put it on the table? You, Councillor Stapenhurst, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just changed something real quick for you, sir. I saw it too. 1 second. So you need it. Sit down.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. That's nice. That's right.
It's funny, she didn't turn it the other way.
Thank you, Your Worship. And to all members of council. Firstly, I'd like to apologize that it wasn't up in front and center in the report that the AOA needed to be addressed by council by Saturday. My oversight, I did include it in the back in the attachments, the cover letter from BC Transit. Again, my oversight. My apologies. We'll try and make sure that when there are deadlines in this and on a form or a council item that we will ensure that that's front and center, so there's no question. This is something that we've done for many, many, many years, the AOA. The cost implications of not having a consolidated system under the BC Transit banner have been addressed financially. We're in really good shape. Ridership is above what last year's systems were operating individually. We will continue to operate one system with 2 operators for this year. And as soon as BC Transit can establish a funding mechanism to acquire full-size coaches, handicap accessible, then we will be operating under only BC Transit's banner. The shuttle will go away, but the system will continue to operate as it is. Any persons that have accessibility issues have HandyDart available. There's still 1,800 hours a year that are attached directly to that. A call will get you on the bus. That will not change. That's exactly what happened last winter. It will continue for this next financial cycle. Hopefully, the province will be able to provide a fleet for next year. My understanding is that numerous communities wanted to expand the system, but were unable to because BC Transit did not have the funds to procure additional fleet. So we're not alone in this, but by the combining of the systems, we actually have a really, really robust system. BC Transit's very pleased with how this is going. We've gone from a very small system to a medium-sized system in less than a year. So, and I'm very proud of that too, and as council in the city, we should be. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, Councillor Cherry.
Thanks, Mayor Sauls. Just a couple questions to the chair, Director Black. You mentioned it was a funding mechanism. I've been told, or I believe it was signaled last year, that it was more about actually getting the equipment and having
procurement,
them.
yes.
So it is a procurement more than a funding?
Yes.
Okay, so we are in
But
competition with
it's the
bigger cities.
province that was unable, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, don't worry.
Through the mayor. Yeah, the province was unable to get funding to procure additional fleet. BC Transit operates their equipment. We have private equipment, and BC Transit equipment will continue to operate that way. Once we get the procurement taken care of, both systems will operate under BC Transit under one agreement and one AOA.
Gotcha. I do have two follow-up questions.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, do you foresee us being in competition for procurement with other communities next year and having the same problem as this year?
I do.
Okay, that's good to know. And then my other question is, in relation to the Handy Dart and the amount of hours, do you know how many were used in our community last year?
I do not, and I believe approximately a month or so ago, we had a brief discussion about transit at that time, and I indicated that I would be coming back to council with a committee of the whole report to talk about the successes, the opportunities, the constraints of where we are operationally, cost, ridership, hours used, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is still the plan, and I will come back to council with a committee of the whole report for that.
I appreciate that. And my last comment is, Your Worship, Mayor Sauls, it's tough to make a decision on just the Handy Dart side of it, not knowing if we are, maxing out that usage, and that's something we need to look into prior to signing this. But I do understand the deadline, and I'm in favor of it.
To date, we continue to provide excellent service to all members of the community. I'm not aware of any constraints due to the financial of the 1,800 hours a year. That will be part of the report that comes back to you. If in fact we need to modify those hours, there is contingency in the budget to make sure that we address that. And so I don't anticipate that we would ever leave anyone behind.
Perfect. That's lots of great information. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Councilor Palmer, and then Councilor Orlando.
I'll let Councilor Orlando go first. He had questions last.
Councilor Orlando?
Yeah, Your Worship. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Director Black, for presenting to council today. At the previous meeting, I requested a little bit of further discussion today about this, specifically on the issue of the impact the lack of having the new buses this year will have on people who access disability services. And it sounds like with provincial procurement potentially the year after. What I hear directly from those users who have been impacted by the changes that means that they're no longer accessible buses is that this has meant they are not able to get to work. They are not able to get to the ski hill. They are not able to use the system because it doesn't meet their needs. I know this time, as well as last time, we've discussed that there is the Handy Dart service, but the hours are limited, the times you can take it are limited, and your eligibility is limited. There are people who are left in the lurch because they cannot access that service and they cannot access the bus that they were previously able to. I had concerns last year that it wasn't that issue wasn't, we didn't address that head on at the time, and I continue to have this concerns now that we've learned that the buses we hoped would be in place will not be in place. So my question of staff through the chair is, what are we doing to address this situation this year? What partners in the community are we reaching out to address their concerns? How are we going to communicate to those stakeholders who often don't even, bring their concerns forward to the city? They don't really know where to, or when they talk to BC, when they phone the system, they feel they are not really directed to an answer that addresses their concerns. So what is our plan to address this situation? I just wanted to be clear, this is my concern right here. I realize we've made some improvements on the system in terms of usage. We're trying to make it work. I get that, and I want to thank the team for doing that. But as part of that adjustment in the interim, we have to deal with these issues, and I really want to deal with them head on and ask what the plan will be to make sure, for example, with HandyDart service, that we can adapt and we can adjust and we can provide that service that we used to provide to them. So that's my question: is how are we going to address this directly?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor, there's the consolidation of the two systems is painful for some of the users. We acknowledge that. The simple solution is to buy buses that are accessible. Obviously, from a financial perspective, we're not in a situation that we can make that happen immediately. A new coach is on the order of $400,000, $500,000. What I can do is return to council with our information report to address improved communications, operational issues, and limited access with the operator, so that we can have a robust discussion around this specific subject.
Follow up, Councillor Orlando? You're muted.
Apologies, yeah. Director Black, I do appreciate the response, and I would like to see the plan to do that. And you know, we're dealing with a practical real world problem, and I think we can find real world solutions. So, for example, finding flexibility within the HandyDart allocation to you know, include people who aren't technically included under the current criteria, if there's budget room for that, to do that, to communicate about you know, when buses will be available, to make the buses that we do have available accessible buses, going through all the routes and communicating when they will be available. I believe there are options, and I really think by working with social services sectors and providers, that would be great. And I would really like to see, as part of that, reaching out to, for example, social development community, or reaching out to adjacent partners in the social sector who have expertise in this area to really find on real world solutions. Because what I hear from the constituents who come forward and express their concerns and feel they've been left behind by this is there are solutions, but they're not finding them when they're reaching out to connect on them. And I'd really like to see that. So thank you for addressing that.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls, and thank you to staff for the reports and information. Just, I guess, further to the other councillors, Councillor Lando's comments regarding these users. So just for clarity, from my understanding, when and if we actually get to this one system, will those accessibility issues be addressed fully at that time, or
will all be accessible?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's important. And further to Councillor Cherry's comments and questions, so I'm a bit confused. So is BC Transit telling us that we aren't getting the buses because they can't get the buses, or because they don't have funding? I'm hearing both of those comments. So
through your worship, and to clarify, the city and BC Transit submitted an application to the province to fund 5 buses, full-size fleet buses, to the province. The province did not fund that procurement of new fleet.
So if I may, Mayor Souls, and what I'm understanding, what really happened is the province chose not to fund the system. And that's a little troubling to me, because we went along, and this has been a 2-year exercise or longer, and on the understanding we would be getting to this one system. I know there was qualifiers all the way through there, but it had the feel to me that there was a provincial commitment, and I had to go back to some of the documentation, and so that is troubling. And there might be a role that we have at UBCM, because if they just saying, screw Revelstoke, they're not getting the buses, then has this impact that Councillor Orlando has. And so then in the report, just further on that, there's a comment that as council is aware that Transit was unable to procure funding and vehicles. And it sounds really what happened is they were unable to, or decided not to fund. So I don't remember being aware of that. Actually, I was a little bit surprised, and I might have missed it. So, but when did we become aware? When did council become aware that the province was not going to fund the buses?
Through your worship, a couple items. We are not the only community that did not get funding. It was typically the larger communities got a portion of the fleets that they requested. Most of the small communities did not receive any increase. Due to COVID, demand for transit has increased significantly throughout the province. And so BC Transit is aware that we need to, or they need to find a bunch of money to procure. Timing of procurement, again, delivery, we all understand there are some delivery issues with equipment at this point in time. That too will become alleviated with time.
Okay.
So the second point that you raised, I believe I mentioned this in a council meeting approximately February or so. So it has been a while, and that if I recall, I believe it was just a verbal update to council.
So yeah, just a comment, I guess, Mayor Souls, is from my perspective, I was surprised, and there may have been mention. I noticed that the province officially gave the notice of this, which just got the link yesterday on that for the on April 5th, 2.5 months ago. It's when they officially told the city this, but I didn't become aware until recently. It would have been nice to have had this discussion back then, because now we're saying, okay, there's a deadline and we have no choice but to agree with what BC Transit. And I think actually we do have a choice. We can say, no, we're not going to go along with this. You've led us down a certain path. We put a lot of investment from the community, and province, come talk to us. And so I will not be supportive of this motion, because I've been blindsided, and I think it's inappropriate that we've been strung along by the province, and then on the timeliness, it comes last minute, and maybe we were aware back February, and maybe there was a verbal. Maybe I wasn't here. I don't remember that. I couldn't find it in the reports, but I feel very blindsided as a councillor, and I will not support this motion.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Councillor Staples?
I think, having heard what Councillor Palmer just said, I think really, one, I'll vote in favor of this, because I think the alternative of not voting in favor of it is going to do more harm than good. That being said, I think it's also imperative that all councillors attend UBCM and really advocate to the province for items when, whether it's housing, whether it's transportation, whether it's infrastructure. Those are critical needs of the community, and in order for us to have the best representation, we really need all councillors on deck at these events, so that way we can achieve the results that we want. I think when we put the demand on staff are kind of looking at us as elected officials to make that representation to the council, and that's UBCM, and that's our opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer and Councillor Cherry.
Yeah, I'd just like to counter that. So if we put pressure on the province, say, no, we're not going to agree with this. They're not gonna pull out of the providing services overnight. It's bringing them to the negotiation table. It's bringing them to the table. If we just lie flat, like every other community and just say, oh, well, we don't have a choice, what's our purpose here? And so we can lobby all we want. We've been doing lots of lobbying at UBCM year after year, doing the same thing, the same song, and no weight behind it. And I think there's an opportunity right now. I know I'm on the losing side of this, but I think there's an opportunity to play hardball with the province and say, look, come to the negotiation table, or we can make this an election issue. We're leaving our underprivileged people in the community behind, as Councilor Orlando has pointed out. And so I'm just countering that perspective, but we'll respect the decision at the end of the day. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Chair.
Mayor Salz, for the sake of healthy debate, I'd like to tee Councillor Palmer up with the opportunity to provide another avenue to success here. My fear is that we provide lesser level of service and get the constituents, our community involved as the end users that are paying the price with our fight with the province. And at the same time, we have the ability to lobby our provincial MLA here for future stuff. But for the sake of healthy debate, I'd love to hear another option that doesn't catch the community up in the fight. If I can.
Yes, so Mayor Souls, so if I'm understanding correctly, the question is, okay, what's the alternative? Either sign this, what's a better way from my lens?
Yeah, but not for
Yeah.
sure. That's
Yeah.
easy.
And so what I'm suggesting is that we say no. Instead, we send a letter to or invite the province to come have a discussion with us. Like, I'm not so naive to think that they're going to suddenly give us buses and that we're not going to agree to something, but it's putting pressure in for that future year. And so if we go through this, the traditional way that municipalities do, play nice, we'll go to UBCM, we'll have a special meeting, maybe the minister will show up, maybe they won't. And we'll come back, we'll spend a whole bunch of the taxpayers' money going to UBCM, staying in nice hotels and fancy whatever, and have this meaningless meeting with it there, and we'll have the same thing next year. And so I'm suggesting saying, no, actually, this is an issue. We're not going to sign this. Province, come to the table. And so that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up, Councilor Cherry? I'm going to go to Councilor Stegner.
Yeah, I'll just end with, my fear is that the community members, the bus users are the ones that'll get hit this year without there being less service, less funding and service.
The service will continue on.
So then why can't we sign this and do all that as well to get us first in line next year?
Yeah, it's a negotiation tactic.
I get it, and I understand that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Councilor Stegner.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Director Black, would you please provide us kind of with a, if this agreement isn't, if council doesn't vote in favor of this agreement and we do say no, as Councilor Palmer is suggesting, how does that play out?
From a financial perspective, I would defer to Director Moore. 40% of 600,000 would have to be funded internally to maintain the level of service. The buses belong to BC Transit, so we likely have to procure additional fleet to provide that same level of service. So we could become a TransLink of sort and be an independent operator outside of BC Transit's realm. In my opinion, the financial implications are significant. It would also likely come from general fund. And thirdly, expansion of the system would become extremely problematic because of the funding.
Okay, great, thank you for that.
I'm going to go to Councilor Orlando, then back to Councilor Palmer.
Your worship, thank you. For Councilor Palmer, yeah, I'm, in spirit, I'm there with you, in wanting to make it super clear that this creates a lot of challenges to community members. However, I would advocate for continuing to move forward with this agreement this year and work as hard as we can internally to improve the system, to listen to the users who have been affected and make as many workarounds as we can to accommodate them, including circulating the existing buses that are accessible on the routes at certain times of day if we can, or making HandyDART opening up availability to HandyDART busing, having a clear understanding of how much budget is there, and maybe opening up the requirements to accommodate them, and working directly to communicate with them for this year. Part of the reason, Councillor Palmer, that I'm concerned about not supporting it is the part of the communication issue seems to be internal. As you pointed out, we've known about this for 2 months, but I just found out about it, at the last meeting. Thank you again to Director Floyd for all our years of service. One of the things that Council has been doing in the communications internally in the past couple of weeks has been our list of people in the provincial government we want to talk to for lobbying efforts at UBCM in September. I would like to bring forward a motion to add appointments with relevant ministries related to this one to discuss this issue. I don't know if that's too late now. So I'd like to consider that as a motion right now. I'd like to move forward, and again, there's the baby in the bathwater. We are trying to improve our system and make it bigger. We have had increases in usership. I think we can roll up our sleeves here and do a better job with these issues and advocate over the next year to get these buses in place for hopefully next year, and do it that way. So I just want to, I hear all of what Council's saying. I think though we need to keep the services going as much as we can, and lobby as hard as we can in September to make sure that we can address and deal with this issue.
Okay, so Ms. Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor Sauls. So the deadline to meet with the ministries at UBCM has passed. However, there is an opportunity to meet with BC Transit. We could request a meeting with Council and BC Transit if that would be.
Yeah, we'll do that. Councillor Orlando, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and thank you, Director Floyd. Is that something that requires a resolution, or or not at this point? And I would add to that, just requesting a meeting and be specific and see maybe if there's anything we can do to get ministry staff there. It would have been great to know a couple months ago, so that we can get in front of staff on this issue. But as much as we can to adapt and adjust right now is what I'm looking for.
Councillor Palmer, you have comment?
Yeah, so I guess sort of technical point is my understanding there is a motion on the table right now.
Hasn't been put on the table.
No, it was deferred, so that's to this
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
So I believe it is on the table right now.
Okay.
And so that secondary motion, I think that would be appropriate after we get past this. Just a couple comments, because I'm going to be opposed to this, and it's more on the negotiation. And that doesn't mean I'm opposed to getting into an agreement with BC Transit. And I'll state that just because we don't agree and we miss a deadline, the buses don't stop suddenly. It's, much like on labor relations with the union, deadlines pass, but you carry on giving services. And so that's, so this fear mongering that suddenly we're going to stop the buses, it just doesn't cut it. So, but anyway, with that, Mayor, I think we've talked about it enough, and I won't add any more comments.
Good. So just for clarification, because the motion was deferred, Councillor Palmer had made the motion to defer. Councillor Stapenhurst had seconded the motion. Do I need to revisit the motion and have it put back on the table?
You do not.
So the motion is on the table. I'm going to call the question on the motion. And the motion is to sign the agreement. All right, Councillor Cherry, do you have a question before I call that question?
Is it just that first motion, not the second one?
It's the annual operating
Okay,
agreement.
that's-
That's what we're voting on.
That was just for clarification. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so calling the question on the annual operating agreement, all those in favor? Opposed? Note Councillor Palmer is opposed, balance of council is in favor. This motion is passed. Now, I don't believe we need a motion for the meeting, but if you want to put that on the table, Councillor Orlando, for BC Transit, I'll entertain that motion.
Sure. I guess I would like to put a two-part motion on there that staff seek a meeting at UBCM with council and BC Transit, and that staff bring forward a report on interim solutions for those affected by lack of accessible services this season on the bus.
And for that motion, Councillor Palmer, any discussion on the motion? Councillor Staples.
A question through the chair to Councillor Orlando. In the past, you have put forth a resolution for Silga in regards to the gas taxes, and now this resolution to have communications at UBCM in regards to BC Transit. So my question through the chair to you is, will you be attending UBCM this year? Because in the past, your resolutions and have fallen to the rest of councils to present that at Silga and UBCM. So I'm wondering if you're going to be there this year to advocate on behalf of the constituents that you're hearing from.
Thank you, Councillor Stapenhurst. With the gas tax resolution, I was happy to stand on the floor at the Silga convention and achieve near unanimous support from those there at the convention. I was also happy to see that it passed at UBCM as well. And yes, I will be attending UBCM this year.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to terminate. Councillor Staples, seconded by Councillor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today to finalize this. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Black. Appreciate it.
And thank you, council.